Hi everyone, Kirsten from Happy Little Quilt Shop. Welcome to Wine and Whips. Thank you so much for joining me. This week we have a fabulous wine. It's actually from date night. So to be perfectly honest, I'm not actually sure where you can find this wine outside of a restaurant setting in the state. Total Wine should have it. And some of the wine shops, more like Rochester, Birmingham, that general direction, should have it as well. We have the Austin Hope Cabernet Sauvignon 2022. This wine is from Paso Robles in California. It's the Central Coast. And the first thing that I want to do is read what's on the bottle. Because this is a very different cab, particularly from the one that we had before. So I'm going to read the front and I'm going to read the back because I think it's a very nice story about Paso Robles, and I think it's a very nice story about how this wine came to be from the winemaker. So on the front, it says, Paso Robles is one of California's most pastoral domains. Its name roughly translates to passageway of the oaks, and indeed majestic trees mark the landscape. Amongst the rolling hills and native habitat lie manicured vineyards where ideal soil exists for farming Cabernet. Dry, warm conditions are typical, yet evenings are chilled by a breeze from the Pacific just 18 miles to the west, allowing fruit to ripen into luxurious richness at nearly 1,000 feet. Soils are elevated seabeds where shell fossils are often found. Now, when we taste this wine, some of that will make a lot more sense. But let me read the passage on the back as well. So this is a passage from Austin Hope, the owner and winemaker. It says, I grew up in Paso Robles, tending vines alongside my father, who made a living farming grapes. Today, the place I call home is surrounded by oak trees and vineyards that my family has been farming for nearly 40 years. The goal for this Cabernet is simple: to make wine that expresses all that Paso has to offer. With its pastoral beauty, perfect soils, maritime climate, and limitless possibility. So I think that's just a really nice passage, both on the front and the back of the bottle. So the front of the bottle talks about just how unique this particular wine producing region is. It's very unique. It produces slightly on the sweeter side cabs, more fruit forward cabs, but then they have that nice, really rich, velvety mouthfeel, and just very well balanced in general. And then I really love this passage on the back because, of course, my business, the quilt shop, is a family business. My mom had a shop before me, and now I have a shop. And it's very interesting to see other industries where the knowledge has been passed down from generation to generation. So I think it's just a very sweet passage talking about the wine. So this is the bottle. You'll notice it is much larger than other bottles. So this is 1,000 milliliters, which is a little bit unique as well. Still a standard size, but a little bit different from what we've had before. Let's get in here and give it a good sniff. Now, full disclosure, I have had this. I've had this wine many times now. So I've had a couple different vintages, and then we had this last night at dinner. And I thought it was just like a nice, like we didn't drink a whole bottle of wine at dinner. So I thought it would be nice to use for wine and whips. So if we get a good sniff, which when we had this at the restaurant, it was not chilled. I put it in the fridge last night because I actually prefer my reds a little on the chilly side. This is probably going to be a little bit too cold. I probably should have let it sit just a little bit because I like cellar temp, you know, mid 50s, low 60s. But yeah, you still really get, boy, lots of cherry, blackberry, and then this is aged in French oak. So you get, of course, the characteristics of a wine that's been aged in French oak. So I'm sure when we taste it, we'll get a little bit of vanilla, but you are already getting a little bit of that kind of cedar, tobacco, earthiness on the nose. But let's give it a... It is a little bit on the chilly side. If it sits, it will be better. It was excellent last night, but boy, gosh, that is still really nice wine. For a cab, this is pretty unique in that it is quite fruit forward. So, let me take my glasses off here, guys, because I feel like it's casting a reflection. I didn't turn on my fancy lights. So, yeah, it's very fruit forward. Cabs typically are not. Lots of cherry, blackberry, plum for sure, like a very ripe plum. And then you can absolutely tell it's been aged in French oak. Vanilla, cedar, tobacco, maybe even a touch of clove. I haven't decided yet. I think if it were a little warmer, I would be able to tell for sure. So we had this with steak last night. It would be excellent with lamb as well. You probably even could have this with a really hearty fish. I'd be careful. You know, when you get to a cab, there's a reason that everybody says, oh, you get cab and steak. Like, if you're at a steakhouse, the wine is full of cabs. They go very, very well together. Every once in a while, and I think in this case, you could get away with drinking this with maybe even a salmon. You would need a very hearty, fatty fish. You could maybe even get away with swordfish just because swordfish is typically so strong. You'd really need something that would stand up to it. And what I mean by stand up to it is when you are pairing wine and food, you don't want one or the other to be too dominant. You know, when you're gonna take a sip of wine, have a bite of your meal, take another sip of wine, you don't want the wine either giving off flavors or the food giving off flavors. And off, I mean bad. So you want, you know, it's always this game of what goes together. And I know in previous videos I talked about, you know, what grows together goes together. This would be excellent with nice hearty cheeses as well. One of my favorite things to do, I typically do it with Italian reds, but I think it would work very well with this, is you cut up whatever you feel like the dominant fruit is. So in this case, I would definitely say plum, or dark cherries, black cherries. It could go either way. So you could have some black cherries, little bit of cheese, drizzle of olive oil, salt and pepper. I know that sounds so bizarre, but I learned it forever and ever ago, and it's excellent. And typically I do it with an Italian red, but I think in this case it would work as well. The last thing that I will say about this is very well balanced tannins. So tannins, again, is going to come across as dryness or bitterness on your tongue. And with this, you get that initial kind of hit of fruit. You get a little bit of that sandpapery feeling on your tongue. And then you've got a nice, smooth, long finish. You can really taste the wine from the tip of your tongue all the way to the back of your tongue. And then sometimes when you take that final swallow, there'll be something there at the end of the wine that isn't always necessarily pleasant. I find often with Italian reds, especially like a Nebbiolo, absolutely, you get like this dry burning, almost like you have allergies at the back of your throat. None of that with this. It's beautiful wine. Excellent, excellent, excellent wine. Okay. So that has been Austin Hope 2022 from Paso Robles, California. It's the Central Coast of California. I hope you learned a couple things about this wine. I hope you're able to taste it at some point. Like I said, you often find this on a steakhouse restaurant's menu. Very, very, very popular in little higher end steakhouse. Just being frank about it. Just being frank about it. Justin and I were having a little celebratory dinner. We don't do that very often. But we decided to be a little irresponsible and spend a little money on a nice dinner. So let's get into the whips, which are very different this week. I'm going to talk to you guys about something that kind of has started, but not, it's at the very early stages. So over on my personal TikTok, and then here on YouTube, I am doing a series of videos based off of this fabulous book. This is the Quilting Book. It's only been out for about a week. It's written by Christina West and Casey Crutchfield. Excellent, excellent, excellent resource. I really cannot say enough good things about this book. And I'm so happy with it that I feel like we need to share all of this education with all of you. And so I am doing a sew-along and kind of this video series based off the book. I highly recommend you purchase it. We are expecting more copies in the store very, very soon. And then the quilt that we're going to be stitching from this book is called the Building Blocks Sampler. And we will build it as we go through this video series that I'm creating. So this is, see if I can get this. This is the quilt. Very, very cute. You go through just about every quilting and piecing technique while making this sampler. And that's what this whole first half of the book is all really important information about all the different quilting tools, all the different types of fabric, and then all of the techniques that will give you a really good foundation for moving forward in your quilting journey. Or if you feel like you need a refresh on things, really, really good refresh. So I've got the first, I think, 3 videos out. I do already have 2 more of them filmed. Hopefully those are going to go out tomorrow. And And that's talking mostly about your basic tools and then does a little bit deeper dive into some of those basic tools, including cutting tools and measuring. So there's going to be, best I can figure at this point, over 100 videos. And I'm trying to keep them quite short, so that, you know, you can kind of chunk away at this information and then use those videos in a companion to your book, to have a really good breadth of knowledge about quilting. So I'm trying to keep those videos to like under 10 minutes. When we get into some of the piecing, I may have to split that up. We'll see. But I think it's going to be really, really fun. We have, I believe, just 2 kits left in the store for the sampler. We did a Tula Pink True Colors version, and then we did a rainbow version. It's 8 fat quarters and 1.5 yards of background that you need. And then, of course, you would need backing, batting, binding on top of that. So if you want to pull from your stash, there is going to be an official sign up very soon, probably early next week. I was going to say over the weekend, but we're actually going away for a couple days. We're staying with friends up north, which is great. I'm very excited. We need a break. For anyone else who owns a small business, it has been interesting times. I don't think I've ever worked so hard in my entire life. Yeah, it's been interesting. But I still love it. I love the store. I hope I get to do this forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. We may just, you know, change how some of that looks. And it may be more stuff like this. You guys might get more wine and whips, more, you know, just more videos in general. But I hope to see you in person in the store too, because that would be really, really nice. If you're in Michigan, please come visit us. Or if you're close by, you know, Ohio isn't that far of a drive. Indiana, Illinois, it's not a bad drive. But I do think some things will be going more online, which is really different for me. I never anticipated being a content creator. In fact, when I was younger, I thought it was pretty silly. I never envisioned myself just doing what I'm doing now, yammering on to the camera, and to hopefully some of you. That's probably a little bit of the wine talking at this point. But I'm very, very excited about the Quilting Book Sewalong. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I think for those of you who haven't really started your quilting journey yet, I hope you learn a lot. For those of you who, like me, have been doing this for, 20 years, I hope it's a good refresh. And I hope it's just a good way for all of us to get together in this new space. This is new for me too. I am not super techie. In fact, Lita, our sales manager, and I were joking about that today, that I was struggling to connect this microphone to the camera so that you guys could hear me better. And she was like, oh, it's almost a little good to see you struggling with that. Because yeah, it's just, technology is advancing so fast. Even our sewing technology is advancing so fast. It's unbelievable what the machines can do now. I was talking to a gal about the Brother Avenir yesterday and explaining to her that you can upload a picture and it will, through the power of all this technology, digitize it into a stitch out And then you can stitch out a picture. Of course, this is very, very new technology. So certainly I like to tell people, you know, you're not going to get exactly the image that you put in a stitch out. And we discovered too, a lot of it is how many thread colors you have. So we did one of Oliver, and the first one that we did, I think we only used 22 colors. And we realized, nope, you got to stand like 30 feet away from it for it to even remotely look like a dog. So then the second one, it had recommended, I think like 58 or 59 colors. And so we did it with all of the colors as close as we could match them. And yes, you got to be a good 5 feet away from it to be like, yes, that's Oliver. Of course, I recognize my fur child much more readily than someone else does. But it's very interesting to see the direction that some of the technology is going. And even on the sewing side too, you know, we've got the Janome M8 and the Brother Celeste now that have stitch regulators. And to be able to free motion quilt, particularly for someone like myself that does not have a lick of talent for it, to have those tools to help, you know, ease that process, and just become better at something that you're interested in doing, is really, really nice. So it's very interesting how things are advancing. And we'll do lots of that with the Quilting Book Sewalong. We're going to look at, you know, where things were and where things are going, and what are the best practice techniques. So I'm very, very excited about it, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. This has been great. I'm still loving this. I hope we get to keep doing this. Yeah, it's just it's just me rambling on about all things quilting and all things wine, because they're two things that I love so, so much. And I love all of you so much. So join me next week for another episode of Wine and Whips. There may actually be a special one this week while we're up north. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. We have to scope out what wineries we're going to be at, and kind of what their filming policies are. So we shall see. I hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining me for Wine and Whips. I look forward to seeing you at our sew along. Official sign up is next week. Get your book and your kits now. Stay tuned. It's going to be great. Cheers, everyone.